Welcome, everyone. I'm very excited, very honored to be the moderator for session number 4 with the title Mapping Barriers and Advancing Change for Women in Science. My name is Rania Kosti. I'm the Executive Director of the IAP Secretariat Office in Washington, D.C., which is one of the 2 offices, the second one being in Trieste, and Peter McGrath is the coordinator for that, and that one is supported by the Italian government. My office is hosted within the US National Academy of Sciences. So today we will explore both the obstacles that continue to limit women's full participation in science, and more importantly, the concrete actions, policies, and collective efforts that can help create research environments that women can thrive, lead, and make their full contributions. This topic is central to IAP's mission, and IAP has been involved in many topics and projects on this, mostly with collaborators such as the International Science Council, and you will hear about these efforts in a few minutes, and academies, the US National Academies and the French Academy of Sciences, more recently, where we hosted in Paris a workshop with international participants to address and assess sexual harassment of women in academia. And from that workshop, I can tell you the fresh message that we heard is that there is a need for a unifying framework that articulates shared principles, boundaries, and harms while allowing flexibility for local adaptation for any policies related to sexual harassment. So we have a great group of panelists with one revision on our agenda. One participant could not attend, and that's the president of ASRT, who is busy being local. But we have an excellent replacement, and I will talk a little bit about Rim in a few seconds. So I will not provide the full biographies of our participants. You can find the information online on the agenda. So we'll just provide the one line introduction, starting with Leah, who is from the International Science Council, and she will share the latest insights on women's representation and participation in academies, drawing from new institutional and individual level data from a collaborative report that will be released in the winter of 2026. The collaboration is between the IAC, the IAP, and the Standing Committee for Gender Equality in Science project. Every participant or every panelist will have 4 to 5 minutes for their remarks, and we will close with at least 2 minutes, we hope, 20 minutes of discussion with audience participation. So with that, I will ask Leah to come at the podium to present her work.
Thank you, Rania, for the introduction. If I could have the slide on the screen, please. I have a lot of data, so you're going to have to follow with me on the slides. Okay, I can't see them over there. Well, that's fine. I'm just going to turn. So hello, everyone. I'm going to start with who I am and why I have the pleasure to be here in front of you today. My name is Leah Nakash. As Rania said, I work for the International Science Council, where I oversee our comms and gender equality in science projects. I've been working on gender for a while now. First at UNESCO, I was working on the gender in media portfolio. And then I picked up the issue when I started my social psychology courses. And I worked on a project that served as a pilot for some of the points I'm going to introduce today. So Rania introduced the project. It's a joint project with the IAP, the IAC, and SCGS, which is, just for context, a union-led organization. And the study addresses the representation, the participation, and the leadership of women scientists in science academies. The study that we did in 2025, it builds on previous projects conducted in 2015 and in 2020. And so it gives us this unique 10 years comparative overview, which is very interesting. So concretely, what did we do? So you might have seen our numerous email, but we've invited a broad range of international organizations, scientific organizations, to fill in a survey. on the representation of women within their organization, and a total of 136 organizations responded, out of whom about 65 national academies. But this year we went further, and based on the pilot I conducted, we introduced some qualitative component to this survey. So alongside this institutional survey that went out to organizations, we also prepared a survey that went out to individual scientists active in scientific organization, and about 800 scientists responded to our survey. And on top of that, we also conducted interviews with leaders of scientific organizations, including academies, to understand the initiative that put in place to promote gender equality and what were their impact. And so this mixed methodology, it really gave us a more comprehensive overview of the experience of women in scientific organization. So let me start with what we learned from the institutional survey. So the sample here is from about 65 national academies. And so we can see that women's membership in Science Academy has increased slowly overall, but remains quite low, and we see a strong disciplinary disparity. So in 2025, women now average about 19% of academy members. We're up from 12% in 2015 and 16% in 2020. Another positive trend is the proportion of academies with fewer than 10% women members, which has nearly be cut in half, dropping from 34 in 2015 to 19% in 2025. But as you can see, progress is highly discipline dependent, and obviously it mimics the overall discrepancy we see in science education and in academia, with the representation from women members out of the social sciences, the humanities, and some applied fields being higher than the one from the so-called hard science, so mathematics, chemistry, physics, and computer science, that continue to lag behind despite some improvement, as you can see. So here on the screen, you have the comparative statistic from 2025 and 2025. So you can see the progress. And if we look at regional distribution, and you have a list here of what I call top performing academies, but it's not a contest. It's just to give you an idea of the geographical representation. And you can see it's spread regionally. We have academies situated in Latin America, in Africa, in Europe, in Asia. And so it proves that progress can happen in a lot of diverse contexts. Now, if we look at the processes behind the membership numbers I've just introduced, you can see that obviously nomination and election success rate for women are improving because we have more women members, but that institutional mechanism and resources for gender equality remain very limited in science academies. So just a word on caution here on this sample. We've asked academies to provide their election and nomination members from 2020 to 2024, and about half of them were able to respond. So a word of caution, because the data, the average that you see here is probably fed by the top performers within academies. So we see that on average, women compose about 30% of the nomination pool, and that between 2020 and 2024, their success at election rates increase. Leadership-wise, we see that about 20% of academies have women presidents, with half of those academies being located in Europe. And if you look at the second column, you look at the initiative and the policies and guidelines, and overall, we see that institutionalization of gender equality is very limited, with only 30% of academy referencing gender in their governance document, only 28% of academies having a dedicated committee to work on gender equality, 24% of academies only have a formal mechanism to deal with harassment and discrimination complaint, and just 11% of the surveyed academies have a budget dedicated to promoting gender equality and diversity. So in short, we see that progress exists, but that without stronger institutional mechanism and resources, it cannot really accelerate. Now, quickly, if we move at the findings of the individual survey, so looking at what scientists active in those organizations have told us. And before we start, just a word on the sample. So we collected about 800 responses, and about 650 of those responses were viable for analysis. And geographically, the respondents were well distributed, mostly in senior level position, and we had 44% of male respondents, which really allowed us to conduct a meaningful statistical comparison between men and women, which was really a key objective for us. And what the data told us is that gender significantly shapes scientists' experience in scientific organization. Women face more barrier to progression and recognition and face higher exposure to discrimination. So I've just gathered a couple of findings here on the slide, and you see that entry pathway differs, with women tending to join scientific organization, and in this case, academies, later in their career. Progression is also less accessible. Both genders see opportunity for advancement, but women are 3 times more likely to report barriers to advancements or recognition. Again, this mimics what we see in the broader science system, with women more likely to leave science as a career, women less likely to publish, less likely to get credit for their work, below the Matilda effect. And if we look at the breadth of their participation, taking in this case the examples of attendance to events and congresses, we see that women are 3 times more likely to miss such events due to care responsibilities. And that when they manage to attend, they are 6 times more likely to report experiencing differences in treatment and opportunities. Furthermore, as I said before, harassment and discrimination persist, with women reporting incidents 2.5 times more often than men. A reminder that this is just the occurrence that happened in scientific organization. If you look at the broader science system, there's even more numbers than that. And that, as I stated before, only 24% of academies have a formal structure to address such complaint. And so just to conclude, it feels like I painted a very grim picture today, but not all findings are bad. And we see progress, and we even captured very interesting success stories from some of your organizations. If you're interested in hearing the full findings, we're hosting a joint webinar with the IAP and SCGS on 11th of February for the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. There we'll present the full findings. We'll present some of this success story I've just told about, so stemming directly from the initiative of some of the academies here in the room. So registration is available through the QR code that you see here. So we highly encourage that you attend, and we hope to see you there. Thank you for your attention.
Now it's on. Thank you so much, Leah. Our next speaker is Palesa Sahezani. Did I do well enough? Okay, very good, from South Africa. And Palesa will help us understand the context beyond the numbers that we just heard from Leah. Palesa, you have the option of come here, or if you prefer to look directly. Okay.
But I just need to be indicated. Okay. Good afternoon, colleagues. I know it's after lunch, but I'm hoping that I'm just going to be 3 minutes. And if I go beyond 3 minutes, you are allowed to punish me. So as you may see that, so basically I'm working with Leah on the same study and the other colleagues. So as Leah has presented some of the trends that are emerging from the study, we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So I basically just want us to think beyond just what the data has consistently indicated to us. Oh, I can do it myself. Okay. What the data has been indicating to us. Hence, I talk about this 35% ceiling, because it seems like we are struggling to break beyond this 30%, 35% ceiling of having women in the sciences or in the STEM. Well, in the case, in my case, the STEM, it's usually below the 35%, the 30%, and then globally, women are struggling to break beyond that 30. If you are able to just look at the slide and also taking from what Leah has presented, basically, the light pinkish bars, they're indicating that it is the percentage of women in the national young academies, in the young academies. And whereas the darker color, it is those in the academies. So basically, I'm just asking a question whether we are seeing a needle shift, or do we have an opportunity? Because clearly it tells us that we either have an opportunity to start reinforcing at younger academies, where we need to ensure that the change of culture, or entrenching a culture of retention of young women in the academies can really be taken stronger at that level. And if we look at Of course, I'm really not going to focus on the disciplines, but you see that there is a consistency of that pattern throughout all the sciences. Of course, with the humanities or the social sciences, really maintaining the higher proportion compared to the other sciences. But of course, with the computer sciences or ICT area, it is an area that is emerging in terms of women representation as a result of the shifts that we are seeing technologically. Thank you. As a result of the shifts that we are seeing technologically in terms of the areas that are growing, such as in the artificial intelligence. And then I think I want to probe further that as we are looking at the difference between the academies and the international science unions, we are seeing the difference that there is a lack of adoption of policies that and the guidelines that really reinforce the change of culture or that can encourage the women's participation. So generally, I think it's important for us, and I think when we delve into the debates, it will be important for us to understand as to when we're experiencing the leaky pipe of women in the sciences moving from the young academies to much more established, experienced academies. What are the drivers of that leaky pipe? Two, what are also the rigidities that make it difficult for us to adopt and implement the policies that really can promote retention of women in the sciences? Leah mentioned some of the barriers being care work that women are not able to enjoy their careers fully and as a potential driver to that leaky pipe. So I think this slide really, in short, just shows us just how we in the academies or in the unions. But I also want to expand that beyond just the academies and the unions, really the landscape of the environment in which women function in. It does not, we do not adopt policies that really encourage women to be retained. Okay, sorry. I'm looking there. I'm almost done. But basically, as my final slide, also as a probing slide, I just want to demonstrate that as you look at this slide, you realize there is a correlation in terms of the youth engagements really sitting at about 1. So youth engagements in the academies, you only have about 1. Majority of the respondents mentioned that there's 1 engagement that is likely being adopted as initiatives that promote youth engagements. So we do not have many of the youth engagements, yet we do have a lot of potential of women sitting in the young academies, but really not promoting the engagement. So it is an area that has an opportunity for us to deliberate on as far as considering the strategies that can promote the retention of women. And I think we are doing well as far as encouragement and recommendation, as it has been a practice and recommendation over the years. But now we are seeing that over the past surveys as well, we have not done well as far as the youth, encouraging the youth engagement. Thank you, Chairperson. Hopefully I'm in the 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Ashley Baer from my own institution, the U.S. National Academy of Sciences. Ashley directs the Committee on Women, and she will provide the U.S. perspective on efforts to influence the representation of women in science. Ashley.
Thank you. And I brought my timer here so that I'll stick to my 5 minutes. Hi, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here and to have the chance to speak a little bit about the work at the U.S. National Academy of Sciences to ensure that there are equal opportunities for women across science, engineering, and medicine. There are a couple of things I want to cover today, but I want to put out sort of to start a challenge to all of us. And the challenge is that in addition to documenting the numbers, the barriers, that we move beyond just documenting the problem to trying to work together to identify solutions. And that's something we're trying to do in the US, but we really want to take it broader than just the US context. So at the U.S. National Academies, I direct the Committee on Women in Science, Engineering, and Medicine. It's a committee that was established in 1990. And over its 30 plus years of activity, it served to provide scientific advice to the US government and academia and STEM employers through high impact reports and also through convening activities that bring institutions and scholars together. The work of the committee has focused primarily on systemic issues that many of which, although they have a disproportionate effect on women, they actually affect everyone. So think about issues like preventing and addressing sexual harassment, or the policies needed to support people with caregiving responsibilities working in scientific fields. These are issues that can affect anybody in society, but we know from the data have a disproportionate effect on women. I thought I would just briefly comment on what motivates this work at the National Academies. Really, to put it simply, it's to avoid losing talent from STEM fields and careers. We in the US, we do face a shortage of science and engineering professionals. Our Bureau of Labor Statistics has actually predicted that over the next decade, 1 in 3 engineering roles will go unfulfilled in the US, which risks about $450 billion in economic output. And we know that women are underrepresented in some scientific fields, not because of a lack of interest or skill, but because in many of the educational and workplace settings in which we're doing science, we're creating environments that are driving women out or preventing them from pursuing these fields in the first place. And this echoes a little bit what Leah covered, but when we look at the data on the specific representation in specific fields, we actually see that overall, women are earning roughly half of science, engineering, and medical degrees. In fact, in the US, women are earning more medical degrees than men right now. But if you look at specific fields like engineering and computer science, we see a much lower representation. And if you look at careers as they progress from more junior to more senior positions, in all scientific fields, we see fewer women in leadership positions, even when they're very well represented among degree holders. So the reports and the work of the US National Academy's Committee on Women in Science, Engineering, and Medicine has documented decades and decades of research documenting the various challenges facing women in scientific fields. We see issues just as early as just obtaining a position. We see bias in recruitment. We see unequal allocation of resources, higher teaching loads and expectations of service without compensation in academic settings, lower frequency of speaking invitations, and many of these kinds of cross-cutting systemic barriers like issues related to sexual harassment and assault and issues related to caregiving responsibilities, for example. But the committee, in addition to documenting this, has really tried to work hard to identify what can we actually do to address these challenges. And this is actually pretty hard because the practices and policies that institutions put in place to try to improve the situation are often never documented in any kind of scholarly publication. So it's very hard to get access to this information, but it does exist. And much of the work that we're doing right now through the committee and through the work of these collaboratives we've brought together identify very straightforward changes to policies and practices that can really do a lot to level the playing field, not only for women who are underrepresented in these fields, but for anyone that's underrepresented in these fields. And I know I'm getting a little short on time, so maybe in the discussion I can provide a little bit more detail on some of these practices. But there are things as simple as, have a panel of people conduct an interview instead of a single individual. Ask every candidate the same questions. Be transparent about what it will require to get promoted within your organization. So again, in the interest of time, I'll save this for the discussion. But I just want to come back to this point, which is that the talent we need in science already exists. It's just a matter of removing the barriers that allow it to thrive. And I think if we all work together to document and share practices, that'll go a long way to changing some of these trends. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Our next speaker is Reem El-Moghrabi, and we are extremely grateful that Reem was up for the challenge to be recruited over lunch, maybe 25 minutes ago. And Reem is from the American University, Cairo, and her organization is part of the Action Collaborative that was initiated by the US National Academy of Sciences. And I understand it's the only international entity at this point, at least. And Reem will talk about safe and inclusive campuses in the Arab region. And of course, as I said, she was recruited 25 minutes ago. She even offered to prepare slides, but we thought that providing remarks will be sufficient. And I trust her presentation will be very clear. Thank you, Reem.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, so thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, Ashley, for putting us in contact. I'm coming here and really energized by the second annual conference or regional conference that we have at AUC on safe and inclusive campuses, which will walk you a little bit today with the AUC experience really on all of the problems that we face and personally why I'm interested in combating harassment and discrimination against both, genders in higher education. So let me tell you a little bit more about myself and what I do at AUC. So I'm the director at the Office of Institutional Equity at AUC. I have been in this position since 2020, but I have been at AUC since 2014. And originally, before joining the Office of Institutional Equity that focuses on anti-harassment and non-discrimination on campus and at AUC, I was a woman in science myself. I'm a graduate of computer science and from AUC, so AUC is also my alma mater. I had joined, in 2011, a program funded by the State Department called Tech Women, which I'm also an alumna from. And currently I am on a local engagement coordinator for a program called Tech Girls. So my interest really with the equity and specifically for women in STEM has been growing in different roles. Just a little bit of a background about AUC at the American University in Cairo. It's a U.S. Accredited liberal arts education or institution in Egypt, and it's 100-year-old, and it was founded in 1919. So there is a lot of work that we do that really advances work in the region. And we have different schools that have like the School of Business is a triple crown in school. And so there is a lot of space that we get where we can present our work and hopefully try to let it lead other, work in the region. So at the OIE, we focus on three main pillars regarding, anti-harassment and non-discrimination by focusing on the prevention, remedy, and resolution of this problem. And as I said, one of the regional participations that we had was being the only international institution joining the Action Collaborative. We were a founding member in 2020 and also having the Office of Institutional Equity focused on promoting equity and inclusion on campus. I'll just walk you through what I had called just maybe an hour later, an hour before I was recruited, the AUC journey. So what do we do in terms of work that can happen in higher education to tackle this problem? So I'll just, I prepared some points which I will walk you through very quickly. I know I'm mindful of the time. So the first step according to the best practices that we have been, promoting in preparing also toolkits with UNESCO was how we need really to review and reflect on our own internal policies. For a long time, we had policies that focus on anti-harassment and discrimination, compliant with the laws, both in Egypt and the US, but the procedures and the steps that are clear for everyone in the community was what we have added when we were revising our policies. So we want to be clear about what do you expect when you're part of the process? What are the statement of rights for both complainants and respondents? And how do we tackle the problem? And to do this, we established the OIE, as I said, focused on prevention, a lot of prevention on this work, and really focused on promoting safety and inclusion. And by that, we also need to address a lot of literacy to both genders, and to make sure that our information is available, focused, non-biased, neutral as much as we can. We also introduced the first anti-sexual harassment training in Egypt, an online training that all our community members are required to go through. Once they joined the institution, we had enforced it, and we have had like really great successful completion statistics, very high completion statistics since we introduced it, and we even enforced some, non-compliance, I would call like measures. We also introduced a reporting system that is completely anonymous. So you may feel one of the barriers in reporting is when I am forced to know the identity of who the complainant is. And statistically, a lot of people do not speak up, from both women and men, just because they have to disclose who they are at the very early stage of the process. And so this anonymous reporting system ensures complete anonymity, and we're able to follow up with the complainant on the next steps. And we also try to encourage community members. We have 6,000 students, towards 7,000, 2,000 staff, and around 800 faculty. And so we always encourage people to speak up, even if this problem is not related to me. If you observe it, if you hear about it, if you experience it, you're always encouraged to report and to bring this matter to the attention of the institution. It's like a collective action to combat this global issue. We also provide support resources. So we work a lot with the Wellbeing Center and we provide available other resources. If someone wishes to report this outside the university, we support them as much as we can. And we also provide publication materials that can be available to the community that explains the policy in simple terms. Not everyone is really interested in reading a 9-page policy, so we try to translate this into simple, visual material that helps people grasp the ideas. We also introduced climate surveys. We just had our 3rd climate survey since 2020 to measure the effectiveness of work. And really, it's an ongoing process. No matter where we go, there is still work that needs to be done. So one of the things that help us address the climate and the institution after what we do is to review these climate surveys and see what people are really feeling on our campus. Lastly, as I introduced at the beginning, the regional conference that we launched, we have partners in at least 3 countries in the Arab region. And we also focus a lot on including public universities in our conversation, because public and private institutions need to work together with the National Council for Women in Egypt and other UN agencies to combating violence against women and girls and men. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Rim. I will save us a few seconds by not going to the podium and back. Gloria, you're next. We are very excited to have here Gloria Dubner, who is the co-chair of the IANAS Women for Science program. IANAS is the regional network of the IAP in the Americans. It stands for Inter-American Network of Academies of Sciences. And Gloria, you will present your work on the program from IANAS, and we very much look forward to learning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for the invitation to be here. Okay, I am a co-chair of this program for Women for Science of the IANAS. Here in the room is the other co-chair, Dr. Carolina Aldovin from Honduras. Just to remember, IANAS is the regional network of American Academies of Science, was created in 2004. And the program, 6 years later, it was created, the program Women for Science. It was established under the auspices of the IAP. And currently, we are a group of 18 or 19 academies of science. Now of Latin America and the Caribbean. Is not that United States of Canada are not included, it's that in the last 2 years, they didn't design the focal point. So we are working in Latin America and the Caribbean. And this means that we are working for, this is a region with 660 million people that we have the language in common, what is very important as a link, but take into account that we, from 22 different nations, we have differences, different present history, different relations. So our academic system is reflecting that. So we have designed, we maintain regular meetings and designed and implemented different strategies to address what we identified as weaknesses with common to all the region. So this is put a special focus on encouraging girls and high school young women to pursue scientific careers, retaining promising women scientists. This is important because there is, they can leave the field because of economy or family reasons. Motherhood, you know, we are Latins and motherhood is heavy. And so leaving the career because of motherhood sometimes is present, is forced. And all these aspects, both economic and respect for living, require strong support from academies in producing effective public policies. We in the different academies work in that direction. And also enhancing visibility and recognition of women scientists and their contribution to society. We tend to be invisible to the society. So I'm going to show some of the programs we are taking. Some initiative of our programs, there are 3 different prizes. Please remember that we manage with a total budget of about $5,000 per year. So our projects are modest, but this is what we can do. We have the Young Scientist Research Award, that is biennial, for female scientists who finished the PhD in the last 5 years. It's directed to the fields of exact, natural, technological, life and social sciences. And the money is awarded to spend in suitable activities related to their research. Sometimes they can use as a support to attend a meeting abroad, something like that. Also, the ANEC level Sanger Prize, this takes the name of a famous scientist who pushed and almost created this program for female PhD, also young, under 40 years old, also with the same, in the same fields, and to apply for research. And something very successful project, video contest for students that we carry out every year. That is called Let's Discover Latin American Female Scientists. So they have to make short videos, 3 minutes, TikTok, but about a female scientist, either interviewing them and either talking about them. So they have to know that there are female scientists. And there are 2 categories for secondary, for high school students from 14 to 18 years, and for university students that probably are choosing a field for to do their PhD. So it helps to identify the female scientists. And you see that the amount of the prizes are small. But for the last call, we have 130 participants. We analyze from the whole view and the scientific view, and we also have the advice of professional in visual communication who help in the score of the videos. We also carry out another project that is a monthly lecture series, women talking about their science. This is just to let the people just their talks for everybody to show important contribution of female scientists in their field. We've also produced a document, A Silent Revolution, Voices of Women Scientists, based on our own experiences. And we worked a lot in dissemination of women in science activities carried out in our different countries. We share all the information about talks, seminars, workshops, conferences. Of course, we maintain regular virtual meetings to keep up with the information. So this is just to show some of the flyers of our contest and different calls and exchange of information. And here, just some numbers. These are, here I limited only to academies of exact physical and natural sciences in Latin America and the Caribbean, and also to full members, because in every country there are different rules, honorary members, correspondent. This is only full members selected by their academies. And you will see the first column is the total number, and the second column is the female percentage. You will see that in Latin America, we have small, medium, and large academies. So we have academies like those. In Argentina, historically, we have two different academies. We here are present representatives of the two academies of science. It's one of the smaller. The number of full members is by law. So we cannot change that. But we can see an average percentage in the region is 27%. It's quite a good number. And in some number, here I didn't include Panama because the number came late, but it's almost 50%. And in Argentinian Academy, by law, half of the executive board has to be female. But warning, I took the words from Simone de Beauvoir, said it takes us a political, economic, or religious crisis for women's rights to be called into question once again. And in our region, this is very frequent. I would take out religious, but political and economic crisis, and we are the first to suffer the consequences. So what would we need? This program, I mean, we decided, the whole group of 18 representatives, we decided, what can we ask now? Just small request, because we always receive the answer that they are short of budget. So what we want is to help gender, to reduce gender gaps in Americas. Is that IAP maintains and hopefully increase the financial support for all our activities. And we would like, this is a new program, we would like to establish and support an exchange system for that enable graduate students just to move to other groups, other laboratories, hopefully preferentially under the leadership of a woman. For example, taking advantage of the trips for a workshop. If one of them change countries, to attend a meeting or a workshop, just extend support, 2-3 weeks working in a different environment, in a lab, in an institution, led by a woman. And I think, and we also need to strengthen our communication tools. We need to be more present in social media. So what we need is just support to be more present, because all our work is having a big impact, and we want more. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all panelists. Very, very interesting points, regional, global, and some national information as well. So I will open this session for Q&A discussion. Please go ahead.
Tarmo Suomere, Estonian Academy of Sciences. There are also massive efforts from private companies towards women in science, most notably L'Oreal UNESCO joint program Women in Science, which is very active in entire America, in Egypt, in South Africa. So my question is, do you cooperate with those programs? We do that in the Baltic states. Actually, we did. We suspended because of political reasons. But academies were invited to select the candidates or the best to be awarded in Women in Science program. And I think that this kind of effort, it has dual purpose. First, involving private money is crucial because academies are not very rich. And second, academies' part is choosing the very best.
Thank you. Gloria, you want to take that question?
I can tell you that in my country, we always participate and propose candidates for L'Oreal. There are two kinds of L'Oreal prizes. One is for Latin America, and the other is for every country, just for applying and work. And we work in both processes, and we encourage to present and support candidacy. In fact, there are several, I'm talking from Argentina, I'm sorry, but from the Latin America section, there are several winners from Argentina. We really push and try to participate. And it's important because it changed the life because of visibility. It's very important. Prizes for women have that impact, that increases visibility. And suddenly the press and other media, they discover that there are women that are important in their science.
Thank you, Gloria. Rim, you wanted to add on that?
Testing.
Thank you. Yes, I also wanted to add that in my previous intervention, I just mentioned UNESCO. We were part actually of a toolkit development process, as I said, with several other Arab higher education institutions. I do have the name of the toolkit. I'll just say it out. You can Google it. It's a UNESCO developed by UNESCO, Combating Violence Against Women and Girls in Arab higher educational Arab higher educational systems. So this is like a collaboration with UNESCO, and we encourage really working with different partners, companies in Egypt specifically, or in the region where we could tackle this issue.
Thank you. Leah, a brief response from you as well before we move on.
Thank you so much. You mentioned UNESCO. Yes, we're working with them. They launched a new initiative, but I wanted to react on the financial aspect you mentioned, getting private money. And I think it's important because, as I introduced, only 11% of academies have budget dedicated to gender equality. It's very little. But beyond the money, there's a lot that can be done without any fundings. And we've talked with a number. Maybe some of you are here today. The Hungarian Academy, the Slovak Academy, Serbian Academy, a lot of academies in Latin America. They've done a lot of things that required zero funding and which had really big impact. Simple things in their structure and their governance. For example, the Spanish Royal Academy just introduced quota in their statutes. So they made it a part of their governance to have gender quota in their governing structure. And this alone, it had immense impact on the representation and participation of women. So yes to funding, but a lot can be done. Don't be discouraged if you don't have financial capacity or human capacity to deal with this question. A lot can be done with very little. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to our colleague from SAPEA, Gloria, a quick question, so quick response clarification. What was the time period associated to the IANA statistics that you presented? That's the question from online. The time period for the statistics you presented.
Is the last numbers. These are the numbers present.
2024, 2025. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'm Rudi Hilscher. I'm the manager of SAPEA. So we are these 120 academies in Europe, which provide scientific advice to the European commissioners. And so looking at the new figures, which Leah has presented, I'm still worried about the academies. So if you're thinking about, for example, mobility policy and how this is advised and how our cities are looking like, then you see that it is man-made, yes? And if we continue to give science advice only by men, then it will remain. So, and in my view, it will come to the point where maybe the academies are not taken for serious anymore because of that gender imbalance. And if I look at the gender balance, I would say in the Caribbean and at the overall 19%, where are those academies who are performing under 19%? And I have my suspicions where they are. So my question is how to overcome that. If we speed up like that with 16 to 90% in 3 years, we end up with 30% in 25 years, and this cannot be the goal. So how can we join forces to become better?
Okay, Leah, go ahead.
Thank you for that question. And very quickly, it goes back to the findings I introduced. And we see that the main issue is the lack of institutionalization of the gender equality and balance within academies, but also other scientific organizations. Formal structure, budget, like I said, dedicated committee, they're very rare. Most of the initiative, as I've introduced, they're really surface level. They're very soft. It's about raising awareness, making encouragement. So I think the key to accelerate progress is really for organizations to take the issue at heart and really institutionalize formal measure, formal mechanism, formal resources, and to deal with the unbalance.
Thank you. Ashley, oh, Palesa, do you want to add?
Yes, I think I just want to buttress the point that Leah is saying with regards to the institutionalization, because I think data is showing that there's less drive towards institutionalizing change, right? And I think also as you would have seen some of the data that was on my slides, that as much as the policies can be developed, but then there's less monitoring and evaluation on the use of these policies. So I think we also need to inculcate the culture of monitoring and evaluation so that we can see that change over time.
Very good. Ashley, I see you agree.
Hello? Okay. I do agree. And I think maybe I don't want to restate what you both said, but I think it requires kind of doing an audit of what are the policies and practices in place that lead to the election of members, looking at that carefully, comparing it with what we know about best and promising practices for mitigating bias in that process. And it makes me wonder, could there be like a working group of IAP that brings everyone together, just put their heads together to say, this is how we do it here, this is how we do it there, and where are there discrepancies that could be leading to a biased election process?
Thank you, Ashley. I will go to the woman at the back and then Francis. I owe Francis one from a previous session.
Hasina Khan from the Bangladesh Academy of Sciences. We are aware of this hostile digital environment for engaging women safely in science. I mean, there's cyberbullying, harassment, and disinformation, which is often amplified by platforms which are not designed specifically for engaging women in science safely. I would like to know, is there any statistics of any idea how this is hindering of women engagement in science? And is there, I mean, this is kind of a naive question, would a toolkit be available from the academies to address this?
I didn't hear the last point. If there are efforts from academic institutions to address that?
Devising a toolkit, if
Okay.
it's possible.
If there is a toolkit. Very good question. Ashley?
I can just say the Action Collaborative on Preventing Sexual Harassment that we operate out of the U.S. National Academies, that American University of Cairo is a member. We did a session at our last meeting on cyberbullying and harassment. And so I'd be glad to share the resources and the link to that presentation. But I think it's a very emerging area of research, but very important.
Okay, let's hear from Francis, and hopefully we can add one more question before we need to close. A microphone there, please. Okay.
Thank you. Hi, Francis Zaparovich, Australian Academy of Science. So I've got a question for the panel. I was wondering, is there any data available about the success of women in prizes, awards, nominations for academies with respect to being nominated with respect to self-nominations? Thank you.
If I may, Frances, the survey that we sent out to organization, academy in instance, monitored just that. So I don't have the data in my head right now because I just introduced the findings on the surface. But we did monitor the number, like the percentage of women nominated for prizes, the percentage of women who actually got prizes, and then if academies and other organizations also had awards specifically for women. So we have that data for about 136 organizations. I don't have the numbers in my head right now, unfortunately, but yes, you want to specify something?
Yeah, no, specifically whether the person nominates themselves or another man or woman perhaps nominates them, because sometimes women don't want to put themselves forward and sometimes men don't know too many women.
Yes, it's a good specification. Indeed, we also ask them about the mechanism for nomination to awards. So we know if to be put forward for an award, if they have to self-nominate, if they have to be encouraged, we monitor all of that. And as I said, I made a very small selection of the findings today. So I encourage you to review the findings when they're available on 11 February and maybe join us for the webinar because we'll dive deep in all of that. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. And the webinar link is also up on the IAP website. I want to hear from Gloria on this, and then we move on. And the good news is I was told by the organizers that we can run 10 minutes behind. We can use 10 more minutes. So we have time for a few more questions. I'm going to you and then back there.
No, I will be brief. In a couple of prizes where I was one in the academy and another a Latin American prize, when I proposed self-nomination, it was rejected by women. So I have a kind of conflict with this. They said, I want to win this prize because I am good enough and not because I am a woman. So it is something that I think we need to think or talk a bit more It's difficult, the situation. And when they are not self-domination, probably they are forgotten. Brilliant women are forgotten and not included for the prizes.
Thank you, Gloria. To the gentleman who just stood up, please, if you can bring a microphone. Yep.
Thank you very much. I'm Zobi from the World Academy of Art and Science. I'm a trustee and I had the nomination committee at TWAS. We have 40% of our trustees are women. I'm not sure exactly what the percentage of women fellows are within the ranks of WAS. However, one technique that we've adopted was to invite women scientists from all disciplines we commissioned women scientists and technologists to undertake work for us, either research or publishing, as a route to introduce such eminent female scientists to our community and subsequently induct them as members or as fellows. So I would recommend this as a technique to encourage the participation of more women in activities of academies of sciences, because clearly for the last 20 years, we've not managed to successfully increase the number of women members within academy fellowships. It's still there around 25, 27, 30%. And I think we should be proactive in terms of attracting more women scientists to our ranks. Thank you.
Thank you. If you can pass the microphone to the gentleman at the very back.
Yeah, thank you for the floor. I want to make two points. The first is my personal observation. We are glad now that we have more women in science, especially in STEM, more and more. But if you look carefully, there is still a problem that we have a number, but we don't have equality and in the leadership position. That's one of the observations I made. We keep on looking at the figures, but we don't look deep what is happening. Most of them, they don't achieve career growth or they stop somewhere. And this is due to the second point I'm mentioning is there is also a stereotyping of the women in general, and it's more in some countries where you look at the women in a different angle. Then the problem there, I think we need to work more in the male than in the female. The problem is that to change the mind of the male colleagues and the male mentors, that's where the problem is. It's not in the women's side, but in the male side, because they are in control of the authorities and they have a way of thinking, and this is a big battle. So the solution is to always include males in such meeting on decision for more education and then for more awareness. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this comment. And this is a point I have been making as well since as we were organizing the workshop in Paris as well on addressing and assessing sexual harassment. We simply could not find any male panelists to join us. Why do we have that problem?
So I can
Let's start this time. Maybe Gloria, do you want to? I'm sorry, Palesa, I meant to say. Do you want to comment on this? Okay.
So just briefly, we captured some of the responses to your question, because remember when we launched the individual survey, we surveyed both men and women, and we hid the real purpose of the survey. We did not present it as a survey on gender equality. We presented it as a survey on the experience of scientists in scientific organization in the hope to get men to respond and that we could compare. And what transpires is that men are simply blind to the diversity issue. I'll release the findings in February, as I mentioned, but they do not pick up on the diversity difference. When we ask them, do you pick up on difference in treatments in yourself or others? Barely any men say that they pick up on that. So I think it's really an awareness issue, and we need to educate men to be more aware of this issue and more able to detect and treat them.
Alyssa?
Thanks. I think one of the issues that is also emerging is the fact that diversity training it's disappearing. I think it was an issue a decade ago, and then I presume that then it was believed that it's calibrating the system, but it's appearing that it's much more needed. That's one. Two, we're also picking up the fact that we are not doing much more of early intervention. So training or educating at an early stage of entrance into the STEM or the sciences. So whether you're a male or a female entering or participating in the science fields and spaces or platforms. So I think there at the entry level, that's where we have an opportunity where we need to introduce that sort of a leveling play field for both male and females. And I also want to say this in the context of the fact that the rise of DEI's movements, as much as we may have a particular stance from the USA, but I do think that outside the USA, the other regions or the other countries do still recognize the fact that we need to consider the environment of science to be also friendly to LGBTQI or DEI community. So I think at some point, we have to probe the question beyond just the normative ways of looking at gender. Thanks.
Thank you. Maybe one more can comment on that.
I would just add, I really appreciate the comment. It's something we've thought about a lot at the U.S. National Academy of Sciences, and we have a saying. We say, we're not about fixing the women, we're about fixing the system. So people will say, oh, do the women need to negotiate harder? Do the women need to do this? Women need to do that? No, we want to look at the structures that are in place. And then the other thing I might add is just there is a body of scholarship on allyship. And so that might be something to explore. Maybe IEP could explore. What does the research tell us about how to be a good ally in supporting people who are underrepresented in science to succeed?
Thank you for that. And now I see that the next panel has all its members in place. So maybe we will start wrapping up, starting from Gloria, moving this way. Any final thoughts that you want to share? You can come on the podium or stay there, however you want to do it. Maybe on your way out, you can. Yes.
Okay, I think that we move a lot, being a very conservative society. And we are in a good way to keeping advancing. And thanks a lot for your attention.
Anywhere next? We can do that. Thank you.
That's a nice way to leave the panel as you walk. I would just say that we're really getting more and more aware about the issue. And I would just want to add to the comment regarding the representation. I think that it's very important that we address everyone in our conversation and we engage everyone in our prevention. We are getting step by step closer, but the road is still way to go. Thank you.
I'll just add that I think we should all work together. And I'll keep it.
Thank you. I think for me, I just want to add that we need to we need to place a strong drive beyond the 40% imperative and ensure that we can close the funding and leadership gap.
Thank you everyone for your attention. I think I want to conclude on let's talk to each other because what I've realized in the interview, we're all doing some really great things locally, regionally, nationally. And I think we would benefit, it would benefit this entire work ecosystem of advancing gender equality in science if we started coordinating much more than we are currently doing. So I invite all of you to get in touch, and hopefully we can strengthen each other's and drive collectively if we work together. Thank you.
Thanks to all the panelists, and thank you to the audience for your engagement and for being here. So the last round of applause will be for you. And we also want an opportunity for a picture, but we will do it after the next session so that we save time. Thank you so much.